I was just saying that, just in time. If you were to stay here all day, you would hear exactly 2 ambulances. One and then another at some point, maybe morning and afternoon or whatnot, every fucking day. And it's the only emergency vehicle you would hear every day, which would be ambulances. Every day, taking various old people to the hospital after they've stroked out, or they've had a medication problem, or they've been other things, because they're just going in and out of the hospital all the time, many of them, and they get sent home because they don't have any room for them. And so just the sound of sirens, if you pay attention and you've learned your environment, as I have, and I've spent time in the hospital and I've spent time in palliative care, and I am a good journalist. I move around easily. I wrote 40 or 45 books in 7 years just going about my daily life because I'm efficient. And what that told me is that, Landon, don't be worried about wasting your time doing anything. You're an eminently constructive person by nature. And we are. If you let your children and get out of their way, they will do amazing things. No one paid attention to me, and I'd written a book, a screenplay, a 150-page storyboard, and produced, directed, edited, cast, and directed in every way a 45-minute feature film before I graduated high school, and I got straight A's. And I got scholarships. You know, I got the top award in math, chemistry, physics. Well, to be fair, one guy beat me out in math. He had 1% higher than me. But I like him. He was a good guy. He was smart. He was. He was a little bit better. He was always a little bit better in math class in grade 12. Just edged me out a little bit doing that. But, what do you do? I wasn't valedictorian or anything like that. I was kind of like the poor man's valedictorian. That my version was like I sat there in my robe and my cap, and I hated graduation. It was weird. I'll tell you about my graduation because I recollect so little of it. Because it didn't seem like it was for me. It didn't seem like I was graduating from anything. I didn't feel like anything. I just wanted to go back to school in that September, and I was jived it was going to be the local college. So that year, in terms of output, scholastically, just enjoying life, you know, the most fun I ever had, if you want to give an idea, by the time I was 19 years old, was doing calculus on my Tandy 1000 and checking my answers with a program at the time that was called Derive, and it was on a floppy disk. And this was really enhancing my study skills. Do I think I was learning anything real about calculus? No. Do I think I was becoming an incredible mathematician? No. But even if you read bullshit your whole life, at least you're using your mind. It was a system of logic. And as much as you can pursue that to some degree, some more, some less, it's not bad. You would say, if you're a professional mathematician, hey man, you got to second year university and you dropped out, hey, at least you got acquainted with mathematics. You know kind of that there's something called an integer and an integration and a derivative, matrices, there's numeric systems, there's ways of conducting theorems mathematically. You know, those sirens terrify me. They're still going. They're still fucking going. You know that? The siren's still going off. That must be one heck of a problem. That's probably fire. Ugh. If you spent a lot of time outside, you would also I'm having a great time today, by the way. I am having a good time, even though I'm an old man who's also a sheep. I'm an old man who's also a sheep. Ma, ma. I'm in an institute for the criminally insane. Doctors, nurses, he's become sober. He's become self-aware again. Yes? What is it? What did you just say? Oh, I said I was a lab. No, the other thing. About being an institute for the criminally insane. Oh, yes. Well, the planet in general. Not because I'm actually in an institute, but you are in an institute. Right? Please, let us help you. No, I'm all by myself. I don't even see you. You're like invisible spirits. You're wraiths. You cannot touch me. Irony. You gotta love it, right? Okay. Dark Irony is kind of like my middle name. That should be my Indian name. It's Dark Irony is coming. Quick, hide. Hello, everyone. Are you there? Or are you trying to avoid the Son of Man? What? You have darkened our house again for the last time, Kimosabi. You are not the Son of Man. You are a poignant cunt at best. That should be your new Indian name. Poignant cunt. Okay. Poignant cunt. Will you marry my daughter? She who fucks like a whore. Okay. I think that was vaguely racist. I apologize. I knew an Indian man who made jokes like that to me. Not quite. I think it sounds racist on my lips. So, but I feel like I can give it a little racist to Native people because they've hurt me. You get sexually assaulted by a male and a female Native person on 2 separate occasions, and not that I don't get that they could be angry at me or white people in general, and could have in one case, did in another, fully apologized for the cuntiness of being a white person, but that was not to be the case. Let's go. The cuntiness of being a white person. Imagine if they had a PBA special Saturday morning, PSA or whatever. If you're a white person, the brown people of the world, they think you're a cunt. Every boy and girl, kind of like a parasite that genocided them. And even though they're stronger and recovered, you still are fucking ignorant and entitled, and you never seem to learn the very kind of thinking that made you need to burn and cut their limbs and make their children die in front of their mommy and their daddy. They had to cry, but you didn't care, 'cause you were righteous and you worked for the highest kind of white beautiful power ever made the earth. You had God and the government all on your side. The shame of all your murders was something you could hide. Welcome to CBS. Imagine if any type of television was allowed. Do you think the television isn't controlled? Can you have a TV station? Right? Imagine if a high school student could have 5 minutes of prime time and you're all sitting at home, right? Thinking that as you watch TV, you're as far away from the world of school and education and scholastics and your gym teacher's affection for the young girls and everything is possible. But in fact, what you're watching is deeply connected to your schooling and what's happening to your brain. Just keep that in mind for a second. Okay? And imagine if they gave one of you 5 minutes of prime time to talk to all of the other people who are going to school in North America, tens and maybe 100 or more million people of various kinds. And we're like, did we interrupt this program? Like Seinfeld in 1995. We interrupt the last episode of Seinfeld for 5 minutes from John Birmingham from Sasquatch, Iowa. Oh, hi. Well, they picked me in a lottery. They told me to read this, use my first of my 5 minutes to read this 15-second preamble, which says, the station is not liable for anything that I say. And if I do say anything wrong, I will be suitably medicated and dragged off to some institution and dumped in a hole from which I will never get out again. Thank you, Mr. Government. Imagine if you could say anything for 5 minutes. Hey, this would be mine. I was like a shy, maybe 16-year-old boy, okay, who had a great voice. And they just passed a bottle cap. And when I was 12 years old, I would have collected this bottle cap because bottle caps are cool. There's something about them, little artifacts of the world. Somebody had to take that bottle cap off a bottle, preface to consuming and enjoying its contents. That is basically anthropology right there. And it's round, and it's got like little rivets in it that are kind of satisfying. They should make candies that look like bottle caps and food that looks like bottle caps. Like, I would eat that. It's cooled off a little bit. Let's come out here. So this is kind of more of a public signature. If you were a local anthropologist and you were studying me, you would camp out on the banks here and get out your telephoto lens when Landon the Sasquatch came out. And I feel that different. Don't have to be. Like I'm deciding like to experiment with a new positive story that my years walking around have been nothing but positive. And they're glorious. And as I get older, I should be lucky if I can just do this for the rest of my life. Thank you so much, Mother Nature. Because at some point, in my fear of not becoming what I need to be, of making some drastically wrong course that I've taken so many millions of times in my own head, that I'm always going to be in the hinterlands of society and suffer more egregious costs to my inadequate income than going on to some early demise in some shithole. So I do let the tiger chase me, but at the same time, that's good to get motivated, because I live a very practical life in so many respects and deeply impractical in others, so that I don't rightly feel confident of ever meeting a female that, I can admire, who admires me, So we keep admiring each other and speak the same language. And if we're liars, both, at least we lie similar ways, lie to me. If I'm on my deathbed, tell me I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Tell me I'm going to go home tonight and sleep in our bed. And I'm going to just feel the stars twinkling over my body. And tomorrow, everything will be better again. Yes, honey. Yes, that is so true. Wouldn't you tell that to your loved ones? Would you lie to them? And is that a lie at that point? There's a right time to lie, isn't there? There's a right time to lie, right? People need you to lie to them sometimes. It's not even that it's not true. It's just not true in some sense that you could interpret it. You would say, oh, your husband's just dead. There's no stars twinkling. There's no bed. There's no rest. There's no turning heaven. That's just a fancy thing you put in your head, because humans have emotions, especially when they're dying. And it's something for bereaved people to say, to think that they have some control over the miserable agony that will preface your eventual fucking total suffocation, brain and heart death. A shock rippling through your body as the light goes out and never comes back on again. Now, did you know that if you did a study and you gave people multiple choice answers in a Harvard personality test, I think you'd have some interesting results to see how many people believe this, because they have to, and how many people want to believe this, and how many don't believe it because they can't possibly believe it, and how there's no way to tell who's more sane, who's more rational, right? You're not going to win a rationality contest by saying, yes, that is scientifically rational. There's a few easy retorts if you think you do. One is, you have no fucking idea. You don't. Any more than you have an idea of what happens in my brain when I close my fucking eyes, right? And think about what I think you look like at the end of the sights of my gun. Do you know what that looks like? Okay. So you think about things that are going to keep you safe from other things, right? The scientific person, in a sense, doesn't want to be a fool. They don't want to get played a fool. They want to know the truth. They don't want to believe things that are not fucking true. They want to know the cold, fucking hard truth. They want to become a doctor who can say to a young couple, maybe they could have been my mother and father, and say, your young son is going to be crippled for life. I know he just came into the toothache, but he just contacted several different venereal diseases, and other awful things have happened to him, because these accidents sometimes happen. Have you been giving him Tylenol more than 3 times a year? Oh, well, that could be it. According to this study, 1 in a million children get seizures and partial brain death if you give them too much aspirin. Oh well, good luck. We've got some people to help you, services to help you, give them sponge baths every day, maybe even masturbate them when they get old enough, if they do, to get an erection, because they can't move their fucking arms and legs anymore. And you can tell them the scientific truth. You can say when something happens to a friend of yours or your father dies of cancer, that's just genetics. That cancer is genetic and it's a way of preening and pruning the human species. It's just a cold, malicious judgment system that doesn't have to make sense to wanting our daddy to stay alive. Nature needed to kill him. And I've talked to people who are pre-med who believe this, right? Who think they've adequately grieved the loss of their father. And I've studied these people when they're children, and you could see that they have lost their father even when they're children. And they're bereaved. And when people believe things, who believe them in a way that's supposed to answer for a bereavement it can't possibly answer for, and seems to take a stark disinterest in preserving the father, or the voice of the father, or of all fathers who might say, I got cancer because they sprayed Agent Orange over me, or they introduced pesticides into my farming methods, or different levels of women in my family have reason to want to kill me because their brother raped them, and some of them died because of it. And my God is not to blame, so it must be me. Because my God has the voice of the Father that can't be killed, and I, like Jesus, the illegitimate child of God, the father of the Father, the illegitimate father, the inadequate father of the Father, of the state or the God or the economic system, has no voice. So you can murder him, and it's like nothing's happened. And you may not rationally be able to explain it, but groups of people need to do that. Hamlet pretty much killed his own father. He's pretty much killing his sister, who has no voice, and his sister is a father. Ophelia is cross-gendered. Ophelia, or whatever her name is. She is obedient. Ophelia is obedient, right? She's surrendering her own voice. She's suffocating and drowning herself because her father has lost his voice. Get thee to a nunnery. He's basically saying, go kill yourself. Life is death. The father has no voice. My father is dead. Nietzsche said God is dead. No, he should have said, your fathers are dead. And our systems of philosophy are going to keep them dead and make every measure of your and their life nothing better than a memorial in the earth and sun and stars, which themselves are dying constantly. Nothing shines or lives or grows or springs, but does not ultimately serve the measures of death and deep and dark and voiceless oblivion. And lives, no matter how wonderful or great or teeming multitudes of people and animals, that will just go out like a blink of an eye and come to one final and utter surcease. And how many people believe that to be true? You think that's true? And this is where we become different types of people and make different decisions. I think it's a decision to live. I think it's a decision to be in love with living more than you are in love with dying. It's a decision you make every day. Death, it's kind of an abstract concept to most people. Life beyond death, even more abstract. But one thing that is not abstract is choosing to continue living and understanding how your predator works. Right? Your predator, like you, right, knows something about the power of your mind and the value of your labor, right? The value of your mother to you, the value of your father, the value of your voice, the value of your health, the value of having the stuff in the refrigerator that you like, and the people that you love to be healthy and strong, and never to suffer. And wherever they suffer, never to suffer unnecessary indignities or abuse, right? Never have someone treat them like just an animal, or to yell at them or make them scared. And not because they happen to, but because they can. Because it's just something that society needs to be able to do because it loves you so much. And you've had to become different people your whole life to fill in the swelling gulf between what you first gave your heart to and what's become of it. as if it's your fault for being a fucking child, with a power and purity in your blood, which resonated with all true knowledge, and the limbs of all the trees, and the leaves of all the watches of all the ages of the world. And you were deprived of that, severed from it. And these people don't think they're criminals. You could be nothing but a criminal, right? You become criminalized, right? You become criminalized by the loss of that knowledge, right? Whether it's been severed or it's just been put to sleep, right? Or you just never seem to make sounds which connect to that. The world never gets around to connecting these tissues for you, but it does everything else for you. It connects millions and billions of years and trillions of stars and epics of earth and war and tides of salmon and molten forces of atavistic and primal terrestrial rage and things to which we've, added certain emotions, or which are really just in fact mindless mechanics. You'll see so many white people say the big quake is going to happen, the big earthquake's going to happen. No, it's not. I know it's not. And they talk about things about what the last one did that are just farcical. I mean, because they listen to everything they're told. And these are educated people. Why do we keep finding educated people believing stupid things? Until we finally say that education is not what we think it is. It prepares people for being in cults the rest of their life that are more beneficial to the economic industry than to us. Period. Full stop. Page break. New paragraph. Go back and listen to the last few sentences 1,000 times, or at least as many times as you say the name of your God on a regular basis. Just so you can come back to a reasonable equilibrium. Right? Because you can give what you want to the world. We all kind of have to. But you can keep a little back for yourself. Even just a small space in your day and your mind when you get to think like I do. Maybe in the batting cage. Maybe some of my thoughts are wandering in your head as you drive to work. And you're thinking, that's what freedom feels like. It's not the sound on the radio. It's the sound of a man's voice who can tell the truth. And lo and behold, the truth became a thing which was rare for any man to want to hear. So that even when it sounded forth, none could hear it. Didn't make sense to them when they could. And it seemed like at best or at worst, it really commended you to a life of agony. And the fact that sacrifice was in the offing if you spoke the truth or took your time to be an honest man. And the negative imputations which it put upon the society, it could not. The negative imputations that you might sustain with such an indifference to such a thing as that or me became something which you could not take. And so, by the prediction of my entire philosophy and my comprehension of your enslaved lives, you would have to inflict some kind of damage upon me. The truth, in fact, was guilty of being something that you didn't want to listen to, and no one around you did. And that was the greater truth. It was greater than the truth, but nobody wanted to hear. That was the biggest truth of all. Right? The biggest truth about any cult is what it doesn't want to hear and who it doesn't want to hear, and what lengths it's allowed to go to not to hear that person in order to protect itself. And its life is more important than that of its victims. And those who would object or make sounds, which you in the cult, for various reasons you can't explain, but probably think you can, won't like the sounds of that person's voice. You don't like hearing what happens to people who live around or get touched by police officers. You just never seem to hear that. Right? We'll publish publicly more statistics on how many people are killed by toasters than we will about how many people are molested by police officers. Right? It's a cultural thing. They're not held to account. You want to talk about the closest, most criminal thing that's going to come closest to molesting and changing the course of the lives of families in your and every township in the world. It's the profession of law enforcement. Period. Full stop. New page. That's just a fact, right? And you're either someone who can decide to live in such a way that it enhances your living to know such a thing, or to explore such a thing, or it doesn't enhance your living or dying, as it were, because you are dead as much as you are deaf to the voice of such a thing as that. When you are deaf to that, you are dead to that. And I am dead to you. And now we're just looking at, talking, we're like corpses talking in the dark, because you've just killed life. You've just killed the voice of truth. You've just killed the voices of everyone who's ever been victimized by someone in or out of a police uniform. And all of the cults of the world, which attend all of the greatest violence in the world, which in turn subtends all of the participation in all of the cult capacities of all the groups of the world. And so you could hardly call yourself a rational person. And you don't have to, because what passes for rational isn't worth much anyway. It's just people rationalizing everything. The power to be rational gets transferred to the power to rationalize anything. So now I've scared the tits out of myself. We'll approach the sunlit forest over here. Okay. Now I can have that knowledge. And like the lynx, I must keep that knowledge. But I almost must keep that fire going. By talking about it, I keep my mind going. I keep it like a pancake on the grill. Right? Right? And keep that flapjack on the grill. Keep it cooking. Right? Because otherwise, you'll forget. And there'll come a time in your life when you'll need that knowledge. You know? It's okay to be afraid of the police. They know they scare you. They know they're scary. They're not paid to give a fuck about that, or to think about why that is. They're not paid to think about the body language of a body politic made up of millions and billions of people who've been afraid of the police and had a good reason to be, according to some of the smartest people in the world. People like me. Witches who study these types of things all of their lives. So it is never silly to be afraid of someone wearing a police uniform, or in a security outfit, or anything that gives them the power to order you around or threaten you for any reason, even and especially since most of what you consider threatening, they don't have to consider threatening. They're paid not to consider that threatening. They're paid to lower their inhibitions enough to be able to, what would under normal circumstances be and constitute, inflicting an unwholesome amount of threatening or violent energy upon unsuspecting people, who, if nothing else, are ignorant of what these types of people, when they're wearing their costumes, can do to you. And the more so if you don't like it. And everything about their agency say, we can do this, and if you don't like it, that's your fault. Your parents should have taught you better, you stupid fuck, for being scared or not being scared enough. Because like, how scared should you be? Due to your ignorance of what the average police uniform wearing fucking cunt weevil thinks is the law. And what you think the law is, and what you think your rights are, and what people are or not allowed to do to you. That it might not be worth your while to call the police at all, ever, or have anything to do with them, no matter what anyone is doing to you, even as a child. Do you know that for the last, just now I felt it, but it's going away, that yesterday, due to the murderous energy of a local group of closet sexual predators who have worked in the childcare industry, my right testicle was feeling preyed upon yesterday after running into one of their husbands on the trail, whom you would think sounded perfectly innocuous, and constantly uses my name. If you analyze tapes of us long enough, you would see he constantly uses my first name, despite my verbal, my audio, and physical body language that I need to have nothing to do with them, and they make me uncomfortable. And I've told them this. I'm perfectly capable of coexisting on these trails with them, but I don't want to interact with them. And yet he constantly uses my first name, right? Every time he sees me, despite turning away from him, avoiding him in every possible way, showing that I don't really want to have anything to do with him, which is my right. Right? And these people are constantly applying what they've learned to apply to children, which is just to keep up the effort and be patient with them, because eventually they'll come around. And if you interview teachers, that's what they do to children who show them uncomfortable, this isn't fair, game over body language. That's what they're taught to do. They're child care minders, after all, aren't they? It wouldn't do if they just sort of fell over like a whore when the child showed a little disdain for a particular protocol. like sitting in a complete circle while you read some fuck-ass story as your globular body is sat down in front of them and they have to smell the stink of another sexual predator to begin another fucking life, right? And if you want to sit 1 foot away or 2 inches away from what they tell you, they're going to start beginning a process of scapegoating that's going to end in your murder by the time you turn your 40th fucking birthday. And your mom or dad is going to go along with it because they're all different kinds of liars. And they hate children, even from the age of 3 or 4 and 5, who want to do anything different and sense that, you know what, I don't have to listen to the story in a circle. I can go sit a few inches away and I can hear the story just fine. I'm happy to comply with this extraordinary fucking captivity you got going on here, you fucking pedophile, but I want to sit over here. I don't want to be part of the circle. But into your teacher mind, he's beginning a life of crime by doing that. And you decide that instantly. You are his executioner, his judge, his jury, his mom, his dad, and his God. And the hammer comes down. You're a bad child. You're going to have to get you checked out by the school psychiatrist. You're going to have to be penalized, humiliated, publicly humiliated, hundreds of times, stalked by different orders of the administration, labeled and stalked some more. And every time you just move another inch away, another inch away, another inch away, and they never relent because they constantly have to use show me energy. We are more powerful than you. We have to be more powerful than you. If you don't comply with even our stupidest, most trivial demands, you're going to be a loser one day. You're going to die. And of course, that's exactly what happens. They curse them with it every fucking day in their minds. These sexual predators thinking about children in ways that's going to limit their lives. The limitations of the expectations and the deranged thinking of the people who are there to mind them and whose minds are meant to have an influence on you. Right? You want to do your schoolwork, good or bad, but the last thing you want is the teacher to hate your guts, to think you're a bad person. So the one thing I did when I was in the school system is make sure the teacher didn't dislike me. That's the scariest thing in the world for a child, right? That because they exhibit any concern about the very anxiety-producing conditions that they're forced to endure as children is going to get you a teacher who doesn't like you. Now, fortunately, I wasn't aware of this until I got into college. And I was old enough to notice that the professors that didn't like me were sociopathic sexual predators. And how little it took, like with the police, it gets to get them to dislike you because you don't lie the way they do, right? They're often very actor-like people. They're really putting on a show, right? And they're not really very refined people, even in the academic sense, right? The good teachers, they're good people. It's still part of a crooked system, but you could hardly do anything else, really. So why not be a professor? But yeah, so my testicle went off